Appreciate you guys coming. I know you guys got questions, so I'll just tell you we're excited. About a week away from the draft, and a lot of heavy lifting has been done by our scouts, our coaching staff. Just got done a week of meetings last week. That was very productive, flowed great. A lot of great insight from the coaches and scouts, great dialogue. So feel good where our board's at. If the draft was tomorrow, we could draft, but we got another week, and kind of cleaning up some clumps and just going over a couple more guys and working through this guy or that guy, but otherwise feel really good about where we're heading for next week. Open up the questions.
Just going back to free agency, I've talked to you since then. Just how did you feel like the first wave went for you guys as far as building the roster?
Oh, I thought it was great. Free agency is it's a moving target. It is, and you go with a plan, and I think our plan was to add as much to our team as we possibly could. And you look at what we did, we were able to address a lot of different positions, and sometimes it takes some patience out the gate, and I think that's the way to play it, honestly. I think you got to make smart decisions, calculated decisions, and try to build your roster as deep as you can going into the draft so you can sit there and let the draft come to you and pick the best player available, and I think we were able to accomplish that.
What do you guys, for both of you, what do you guys use the 30 visits for players?
It's funny. I was in the shower this morning thinking about that question, how I would answer that question, because people want to know. I know it's a visual that nobody needs. I know. Sorry, Josh. I just keep rolling, right? But we use it for a lot of different reasons, Chris. It's like people try to figure out what teams use it for. Is it a smokescreen, this and that? I want to get to know some players. There's some players I want to get to know. I didn't meet them at the Senior Bowl. I didn't meet them at the East-West. I didn't meet them at the Combine because you only get 45 interviews at the Combine. So, there's some players that I hadn't had a chance to talk to. So I just want to meet him. I want to shake his hand, talk to him, get a feel for him, let Chad get a chance to talk to him, feel for him, our coaches. And then there's other reasons. We may have some questions on him. Maybe we didn't have enough time with him at the Senior Bowl or at the Combine where we wanted to dig deeper into some questions we had, or there may be a medical reason. So all different reasons. There's no one reason. There's no, hey, this is, some teams talk about, I hear it, like some teams bring in a bunch of guys that they're not interested in. No, we bring in guys that we want to get to know a little better.
No, I'd agree with that. Just a lot of these guys have remarkable stories, and, our scouts do a great job of getting the background information. They do a great job of going in, talking to sources, and, a lot of times when they're talking about these players in the meetings, it really sparks our interest, and we really want to get to know more about the players, or we might have questions about other things, so we bring them in, get a chance to talk to them in a little bit more of a relaxed environment than the Combine or the Senior Bowl or All-Star games and stuff like that. So it's really cool to be able to talk to them.
Yeah, it's a fun process. Like they come in, they go to dinner, they relax a little bit. We're not looking to grill them and put them under the spotlight, and we want to get to know the guy. So we get to take them out to dinner. Our coaches get to hang out with them at dinner. Our personnel assistants get to hang out with them at dinner, and then we get to bring them in the office and show them around, let them spend time with everyone in the organization. And so it's great.
So is there often times where you might draft a guy high, but you don't necessarily bring him in for a 30 because you got everything you need to know?
Yeah, I think we did that last year. Yeah, Joe, and again, we talked to Joe at the Combine, and Mike Elston knew Joe, Chris O'Leary knew Joe, so it was an easy. We didn't have questions on Joe, and I knew Joe. I met him. I talked to him at the Combine. I met him at Notre Dame, so felt good, But sometimes it's just to shake a guy's hand, I haven't met him yet, and so I want to see what he's like.
What is your level of anxiousness to get this over with? Because it's this huge buildup, and you have all these ideas and things that you want to do. So what's the level of anxiousness to get it done?
I wouldn't call it anxious. Excitement, opportunity. We're getting ready to. Like I said, I feel like we did a really good job in free agency, really addressing a lot of needs on our team, and I feel like we could go out and play a game tomorrow, and be damn good in that game. But we have a chance to add 10 more players through the draft and additional players post-draft and undrafted free agents, and then free agency after the draft. Free agency never ends, as you guys know, as we showed. But it's just excitement. So anxiety, no, nerves, kickoff, our Super Bowl, the Scouts Super Bowl, that anxiousness maybe, or that excitement, yeah, definitely.
Are you receiving calls, a lot of calls from other teams?
You get a couple. Picking 5, you get a lot more calls than picking 22. I can promise you that. And make no mistake about it, I like picking where we're picking, and I'd rather pick even further down. All right, that's the plan. We're going to try to pick as late as we can every year. But you definitely at 5, you definitely get more calls. This year, it's more of the teams in front of us, behind us, are thinking, they're all making calls. Hey, you looking to move up? You looking to move back? That happens. You end up talking to all 32 teams. You really do throughout the couple weeks that lead up to the draft.
Going back to free agency for a second, with Puna, obviously played really well for you guys last season. He ends up signing elsewhere. Just from your perspective, what happened there with Puna, and why were you guys not able to get it back?
Puna, he's not alone. There's, again, we were active in free agency on a number of players, Puna being one of them. And in the end, it's the player's decision, where he's going to go. And he made his decision to go to the Rams. So I felt like we were competitive in our offers and in our pursuit of Puna. And it just didn't work out for us. But we were able to pivot, like I said, and add 3 more defensive linemen, which is a great opportunity.
Where do you feel like you guys are at that position? Obviously, Tier comes back.
Yeah.
Sean Hamm, Nate Jones.
Yeah.
Justice coming back.
Right.
Tito. Just where do you feel like you guys are?
I feel good about it. I really do. I know all those players. I've watched them all over the years, and there are players that the players that haven't been here. Man, he'd be a good guy to get someday. And then you get the opportunity to add him. And the thing is, they're hungry, they're competitive, they're great men, and they're going to come in here and add to the culture.
Joe, when you've had the free agency that you've had so far, filling a lot of different gaps around the roster, how does that impact what you're going to plan for the draft? Or does it?
So, what it allows you to do is to really, truly take, like Chad was saying to me earlier today, it's like you let the board come to you. You don't feel the pressure, so to speak, that, we got to address this player. We have to take this position. I just don't feel that way because of the way we have spread ourselves out in free agency and adding to the roster and really completing the roster. And so I think that's the goal. You want to put yourself in a position to go to draft day and say, we can literally let the board come to us. We can take the best player. Now, when it's a tie, all right, or when they're close, obviously you use different factors. If 2 players at the same grade level, you use different factors to put one above the other. Sometimes it is talent, but other times it's, okay, maybe depth at a position. Maybe it's the player's durability. Maybe it's the player's character. Different factors weigh in there, but it allows us to let the process play itself out and follow the process and not let quote-unquote need come into play.
Chad, how much are you, in that ideal scenario, how much are you, pulling at Joe's sleeve saying, hey, get this guy.
I mean, we're in alignment on every decision. You know what I mean? There's a lot of communication. It's very collaborative throughout the entire organization, throughout the entire football ops. So it's me, bringing ideas, bringing suggestions to the table, but it's also the other scouts, football admin, analytics, the coaches. We're all kind of working together with one common goal, and I think that's the beauty of our process and how we do things.
I'll tell you where Chad does help me a lot. We sit there, and I'm kind of running the meetings, and you're hearing a lot of stuff. And Chad is that kind of angel on my shoulder saying, what about this? Don't forget about this. It's like he listens so well. So, he doesn't let me forget things or things slip by me, and which is awesome.
Who's the devil on the shoulder?
That's myself. I handle that on my own.
We talked to you before about how you guys have been linked to every single receiver that became available.
Mm-hmm.
Were you guys ever in, the DK or Cooper, or I'm sure you're not even talking about, but were you ever in on any of those kind of guys?
Yeah, like I said, we've made competitive plays towards a lot of players, not just receivers. And there's some players that you've met, and there's other players that are elsewhere. So make no mistake about it. We attack free agency end of 53 cuts, you saw it last year trading for Elijah and Heineke. Like, we are going to be aggressive as we can, and sometimes it's going to pan out, sometimes it doesn't.
As far as the offensive line, you signed Makai. Jim told us at owners' meetings that right guard is probably where he's going to be at. You both have talked about, experimenting with Zion.
Right.
At center. At left guard, where do you feel like that position is at? Who's in the mix? Would you like to upgrade over what you have on the roster?
Here's what I'd say. I feel like we got better up until this point. We still have the draft ahead of us, but we got better. I love Brad. Been with him for 5 of his years in the NFL. Did a great job for us last year. Zion is working at center as well. Bradley has played left guard. Andre has played guard. Zion has played guard, but he's working at center, like I said. And Pip has shown he can play guard and tackle. So I think it creates a great competitive environment and really strengthens us as a whole.
With Andre, he played guard like in practice.
Yeah, he's worked at guard in his career. So, yeah, it's not something, him and I talked about it. It's not something, obviously he's been a center primarily, but it's not something he's foreign to and, unwilling to do. So, again, you just let him go out there and compete. They're all great dudes. They're all great teammates. They're going to add to the fiber of the O-line, and that's what you want, man. You want a good, strong unit that works together.
So interior-wise, if you go into the season with, Zion at center and Bradley Bozeman at left guard, obviously Makai is paid for the free agency, considering an upgrade. Do you feel like that's enough of an improvement for you guys on the interior based on what happened last season?
I thought we were pretty good last season, Pop.
Is there an area?
11 wins, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, it's all right.
Is there an area on your team that you want to improve more so than any other?
Not really. I don't look at it that way. You just get an opportunity to get better with every pick and every play, every decision you make, every player you add. I don't really look at it as like, we really got to get better here. Because if you do, you can force yourself. And I've been part of that, Jim. I've been part of a decision-making or making a specific decision where it's like, we really got to upgrade this position. And it didn't work out. And I think that's when you make the biggest mistakes, when you're so focused on one position that you just force yourself into a pick. And, sometimes it does work, but other times you get left saying, gosh, if we just would have taken the best player available.
Is there more pressure because you're in this city with all the teams that are here and all the sports dollars that are here?
Yeah, I think the pressure is the league. The city is the city, right? And we love it here, and it certainly is competitive, and there's a lot of sports teams here. But we want to be one of those consistently successful teams. And we don't want to win one year and then have to go back and rebuild. We want to build a consistent winner that this city's proud of, that this city embraces, that this city believes in. And I think we're on the way to doing that. I feel really proud of the job we did last year as an organization, the support we got from Dean and John, and everything the coaches and the scouts did to build this team up to where it is right now. And I think we're just getting started.
Joe, you have a previous experience at 22 in Baltimore. You picked, you traded back. Does that experience help you at all, or is each draft sort of its own entity?
Yeah, I think the experience of picking in the 20s in Baltimore lets you know, okay, this is the cluster of players you're probably going to be getting. And you kind of weigh, obviously when you trade back, you have to have someone calling you to trade up. So, I've seen Eric and Ozzie trade back, and I've seen how they handle it. And we'll have a plan in place for every call that comes in, if a call comes in, that, hey, this is what it'll take, this is what we're willing to go back for. Being in those positions, watching the way we've done it in Baltimore will help me, and gives me a good baseline for what to follow.
You mentioned that last year how this kind of, not necessarily approach, but just the mindset of drafting a change now that you're picking a little bit later. And hopefully, as you mentioned, like you want to keep picking in the later rounds anyway,
Yeah.
the later picks.
Yeah. So, 5, listen, we kind of felt like we might have a good chance, knowing the quarterbacks were going to go. We might have a good chance to get the best player on our board, and it kind of worked out that way because the quarterbacks went. Obviously, there's a very small probability that we're going to get the best player on our board at 22. But that's okay. We're still going to get a great player. And our job as scouts and coaches organizationally is to get the board right and the stack right. So the highest player on our list is the right player for us, and so, we got to get that guy right. So let's get this stack set up. And that goes throughout the draft, every decision, first round, second round, fifth round, hey, last year we're looking at Tarheeb and Cam. It's like, who are the best players right now? And it was Tarheeb, and then we waited 2 picks or 3 picks, whatever it was, and we took Cam. Some people are like, hey, we doubled down on corner. Well, they were the 2 best guys to help our team, and so when we stuck with it, it would have been really easy to say, okay, we dressed for the corner, let's take another position. But we stuck to the board, and it ended up panning out for us.
So in general, you would say kind of your philosophy that you've learned is like, you're going best player available, not so much always like just need based.
Right. Yeah.
And how do you feel like your experience helps you, as a tandem, I know you guys go back together, like, how did you get to that idea, like that philosophy?
You can answer it too, but I mean, it's kind of embedded in us from Ozzy,
Yeah.
and then followed with Eric. And it's the results are there, and that's how we're taught and trained, and that's where our beliefs were built and grown. And again, your team changes every year, all right, and injuries happen, and you don't know, something can happen. So you may say, oh, you took a player, maybe it's not a need. 2 weeks later, it could be a need, and so you just take the best player available, and he's going to be here for 4 or 5 years or even longer, and he's going to help you win games.
When you kind of take from last year, obviously you guys were able to hit on a couple of picks. Is it just like last year, or is there some things that maybe does it give you more confidence just second year, like in this position?
No, I mean, last year was a great year for us. We felt like it was year one in this era, and we laid a good foundation. We were able to win, had a good season, won 11 games, and went to the playoffs. And obviously, that's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is always to win it all. But felt good about the foundation that we laid last year, and really encouraged going into this second year and the next part of the process, and just building, continuing to create competition across all levels, across all positions, and create that depth that Joe's been talking about. And we feel excited and really, really grateful for the opportunity going into the draft here with 10 picks.
General question about the draft for both of you. When you have a deep class at a specific position, is that incentive to wait later because you potentially get a good player later in the draft, or is that incentive to maybe go and try and get a player at the top of the class because it's a very talented class and potentially getting a difference maker?
Yeah, I think the important thing is you obviously, the class is deep at a certain position, but still to stack the players the right way. And then, maybe if you're sitting, I think it just depends on the situation, really. I think if he's sticking out, that player in your rankings is way above the next guy, you take him. If you have 2 picks close together, well, okay, we got more depth behind us at this position that, we could be sitting there in the 5th round last year, and maybe we felt like we only needed 1 corner, okay, corner's a little deeper, we could take X and then take a corner. One of these 2 guys will be there with that pick. So the strategy comes into play then. That's a good question, because there's a strategy to it. Yes, there is, but you also don't want to get greedy, right? Like, oh, we can get somebody later. Well, you can think that way, and then a run could happen at that position, and you're like, well, that didn't work. So just take the best player, especially if he's sticking out.
Joe, you've got the comp picks that you said you like, or was it love? I forgot.
Yeah, love. You love comp picks. You kidding me? You love them. And
how much is that? Even though it's kind of stacked at the end of the draft, how much does that kind of play into your strategy?
yeah.
Knowing that you've got these extra.
I just think it's an opportunity late in the draft to really try to hit on great opportunities, like great sleepers, finds in the draft. And that's day 3 is when, and I'll say this again on Friday night, day 3 is when the scouts get really excited, all right? And the coaches too. because they've looked at all these players, and you sit there and you're looking at what's left on the board, and you really say, okay, who do you guys love? So that's when the momentum and you see the conviction come out, and to have 4 or 6 round picks, that's going to be fun. Like, we get to find guys, all right, who's got conviction on this player, and it can be any position, and so that's the beauty of it, and so I'm looking forward to that.
Going back to the positions that are deep, are there a couple off the top of your mind that are pretty strong this year?
Yeah, I mean, D-line and running back, and I'd say tight end, corner. There's a lot of corners up there on the board we like. So those are probably the 4 that stand out. And that's not to say that other positions aren't deep, but they're the ones that I think if you just pull up ESPN, everyone will talk about. And certainly the edges are strong in D-line as a whole. And but I feel like there's players at all positions in all rounds that we'll be able to, find.
Have you, or do you, talk to key players about their ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. So you talk to key players about their ideas. The other thing is the players are one of the best resources out there when you talk about other players. If it's a vet, hey, do you know this guy? We're thinking about him in free agency. I'm thinking about trading for this player. Do you know him? In some cases, we have guys here that have played with him on other teams. If it's one of our younger players, they've played with a lot of these prospects. So I can see any of our guys, any of our rookies, I can see Ladd or Joe and talk to them about players that he played with. And they're great resources, because the one thing a rookie or a second-year guy here knows, he knows the culture and the fit. So I can ask them, and I've done this in Baltimore and I do it here, hey, do you think he'll fit in? And hey, we got some questions on this player. Or, hey, I really like this guy. What do you think? Is he a fit? And they're not going to sell their friend or their former teammate if they don't believe he'll fit here. So they're a very valuable resource.
With both of you, what made you guys want to get Trey Lance?
Just a talented young player. He's younger than some of the players in the draft. A lot, actually, a good number of players in the draft, with COVID and all that. And so a player with that tools, he's a great man. Had really enjoyed meeting him when I spoke to him, and, competitive, and everyone who's been around him has said great things about him. So guy can come in and compete and make our roster better as a whole.
Yeah, I'd echo that. Just really talented young player at a premium position who we were all extremely fond of in the draft process when he was coming out, and he is a great young man. And so just to create more competition on the roster, and like I said, at a premium position, a guy who we have a lot of information on. We know he's a great person as well. So it's just a real good person to add to the locker room and to the culture.
Just a general question for both of you. I don't know how much you guys have looked at, like a Travis Hunter. Where do you guys see him in the NFL with both ways at all? What positions he could play, if you've looked at him at all?
Yeah, well, we've looked at him. Again, at 22, I don't know if he's going to be there. But I don't know. I mean, it's a draft. You never know. Very talented player. Great young man. And he could play either position. I think I agree with people that say it's hard. Meetings, being in both, absorbing all the game plans to play two-way, be a true two-way player. That would be a challenge. It'd be cool to see done, but I think he could start at whatever position he wants to start at, and maybe moonlight at the other position.
Yeah. No, I would just echo that, man. He's a great player, and he's been doing it the way he's been doing it for a long time. He's been playing both ways, so I'm not going to bet against Travis Hunter.
Nope.
Yeah.
Just with running back, is there a specific skill set you guys are looking for as far as pairing with Najee?
Again, that's one of those things where you grade the player, you evaluate what he does well, what he doesn't, what he may not do as well. Certainly, you want to build a complete backfield and with some versatility, but you don't want to discount a player who's similar to Najee, because again, may not be a need, but it could be a need. So just take the best. If we're taking a running back, get the running back stacked in the right order as, hey, who helps us? Who's the best running back? And, you know, we talk about what every player offers. It's not just running back, you know, talk about corners. You know, can they play outside? Can they play inside? Safeties? Can they play in the box? You know, linebackers, are they a Mike Will? You know, edge guys, can they set an edge? Can they cover a tight end? You know, how are they pass rush? You know, so you discuss that with really every position. Backs aren't, you know, in their own, you know, regard or held in a separate regard. Like, you do that with everyone. But when it comes to Najee, yeah, we want someone that can complement him and work with him and maybe carry a lot of the same traits he has.
Yeah, you had a couple of GM interviews with Washington. What was that experience like for you, and how valuable was that?
Great experiences. I mean, they were both great experiences, and had a great time. I learned a lot about myself through the process, and anytime you get a chance to sit down in front of owners and decision makers and kind of share your vision, I think it was really rewarding in a lot of ways, and it just kind of reinforces what we have going on here. I mean, I'd love an opportunity to be a GM at some point. I think anyone who's been in the business for as long as I have, we have those goals, but at the same time, just right now concentrating on being the best assistant GM that I can. This is a great environment, great culture for winning, and just really, really proud of what we've been able to accomplish here in a short period of time, and looking forward to the future here.
Eric, okay, you can ask your question.
Was there anything specific that you learned about yourself?
That I could do it, you know what I mean? I mean, I always kind of knew I could do it, but at the same time, it's great to get that reinforcement from people that you trust, and just to go through the whole process of the interview, to work out any nerves or butterflies that you may have, and yeah, I had a lot of fun, you know, I had a lot of fun in it.
I'm just running the day.
Yeah, listen, here's what I'll say. I went through it, same thing, had a couple before I got this job, and it's a cool experience. It's an honor when you get asked to interview, and I know Chad felt that way. Oh, yeah. And you do, like, you grow through those interviews, and I will sit here and tell you, I love that he's sitting next to me right now, and I was worried that he wasn't going to be here this year, and I don't think he's going to be sitting up here next year. I really don't. I think he's more than ready, and the team's going to hire him, and I'll have to find someone else to sit up here next to me. I talk coach into coming down next year, maybe.
Where do you guys feel like you're at tight end after signing with Tyler?
You know, Chad knows Tyler. He was with him for 2 out of the 3 years he was with the Jets. But I love what he brings to us, the competitiveness, the toughness, the hands, the run after catch, just the grit. And I feel like we're in a good spot. You know, I think where we finished the year and what he adds to us is, I feel like we're in a better spot.
Has there ever been a time when you talked to a player or an agent, and that player and or agent said, you know, I think I'd rather stay on the East Coast? Has there ever been a time when you've had to really convince a player that this is the place for them, when at first there was hesitancy on their part?
Yeah, that's a great question. And any player out there that feels that way, coming from an East Coast guy, me, who spent his whole life on the East Coast except for 8 years when I spent it in Alabama working or in school, you should come to LA. All right? I mean, this place is special. It really is special. I am an East Coast, born, bred, raised, lived guy. And I love the East Coast. All right? That's where my family and friends are, some of my greatest memories. But you should come to LA. You guys that don't think the West Coast is, I mean, it's an awesome place, man. And but yeah, there's people that think that way. There's players that would rather stay in the Southeast. You know, there's players that would rather stay in the Midwest. That's where they're from. It makes sense. That's where their family is. I understand that. But all I say, my challenge, anyone who's thinking that way, just try it on for size, because it's special. You know, I mean, 70 degrees and blue skies every day. You know. It doesn't get old. That rain gets old. That cold gets old. This doesn't get old. It hasn't yet, so I'm in a good mood every day when I come to work. Yeah.
What do you guys make of the receiver class this year?
It's a good class. It's a good class. I didn't say it as one of the deep ones, but when you look at our board, if I showed you our board, you say, wow, they got a lot of options. So, again, like every receiver class, there's different sizes and profiles of each guy, but I think there's a lot of guys that can help us.
Are you gonna show us the board?
No, but I will show you. All right, we did the film. I don't know how many of you guys were there last year. Came after the draft. We watched it in the draft room. We'll do it up in the draft room next year or after the draft. It's awesome. You should see. You guys will be blown away by what Dean built us, man. It's awesome. It's a beautiful, beautiful draft room. It's awesome. So. Yeah, you guys came in. We had the projector and the screen hanging down. What do you guys see? It's special.
Chad, Joe mentioned your history with Tyler. What were those conversations like with free agency for the guy that you know, and what do you think he brings to this team?
Oh, yeah, Conk, I mean, he's a great guy. I mean, he's a pro's pro, you know what I mean? As tough as they come. He's a great teammate, just a guy that loves football. And I knew from my time spent with him in New York that he would be a great guy just to add to the locker room, you know? And so that's always been my communication here, and Joe knows that. And we talked about it throughout the offseason. So really excited to have him here, and really excited for the future for Conk with the Chargers.
During those free agency talks, how much do you guys lean on your previous relationships with players you know, coaches you know, when you're trying to reach out and have discussions with certain guys, see if they want to come, see if you want to bring them in?
Yeah, I think a lot of research is done. The more background work you can do on players, the better. Obviously, I was in a fortunate situation to have been with Tyler the past few years with New York, so I knew him as a guy, I knew him as a person and as a player. But yeah, we make a lot of calls, to be honest with you. We call around to our friends in the league just to get different background on players, maybe not necessarily friends of the players that are on that specific team, but people that have spent time with them in the past. You want to get as much information as you can going into the process, whether it be for the draft or for free agency.
Was it kind of the same way with Mekhi Becton? Just obviously you knew him as well.
Oh yeah, Mekhi. No, Mekhi since he was drafted, obviously, and just really proud of him and what he's accomplished and how well he played last year with the Eagles, won a ring, and really excited to have him here. Just a great dude, great person, great blend of athleticism and size and power. And today's his birthday, so shout out to Mekhi. Happy birthday! He's a great dude. Really excited to have him here.
A question for both of you. What are the tiebreakers if two guys are dead even, and both of you feel very strongly about taking this one of these two people? What are the tiebreakers?
Character. That's it. If two guys are dead even, I'm taking the better kid, We're gonna take the better person. And if they're both the better person, then we'll take the best fit, But I guess that's tiebreaker too. And if that's a tie, we'll flip a coin. Just like the tiebreakers. No, character is really what is the separator. And that's makeup. That's the guy's toughness, mentality, grit, resiliency, how he is off the field. What type of teammate he is, we take everything in, we wrap it all together, but that's the tiebreaker,
When you're scouting receivers, what goes into projecting if a guy can play outside at the next level or not? Like obviously there are guys that play outside in college that are probably not going to be able to do it at the next level because of size or whatever. Just when you're scouting it, how do you guys determine if the players do you think is going to be able to play outside?
Yeah, it probably goes with all positions too, but specifically with wideouts, you mentioned size. Okay, he may not be big, but can he separate, work the outside stem, the vertical stem? Can he track a football? When you're talking about outside receivers, he gives up some size, but he can run by people, so he still has value outside. But it's really their ability to get open, work open, catch the football, and same thing, the slot players. There's plenty of slots that have come into this league and done well outside. And there's one that's probably one of the highest paid receivers in the league that everyone questioned whether or not he could play outside. He's done all right. Won't mention names. But, so you look for a player, again, it comes down to playmaking, production, ball skills, separation, size, they come in all shapes and sizes.
With Asante, is the door still open at all with him being back here?
Yeah, Asante kind of addressed it, and that's really Asante's that's Asante's conversation, not mine.